welcome to the Donut Hole, your place where a couple of guys sit around and pontificate about all kinds of crazy topics. My name's Paul.
I'm Jason.
And we want to welcome you to our show. So, Jason, I think today we were supposed to be talking about kind of the origins of humans. It's going to be kind of an interesting topic, kind of a deviation from politics and social issues. Maybe we'll touch on that, but who knows?
Yeah, it's going to be our specialty, speculation. So that's a lot of what this topic is speculation.
Yeah, speculation and pontification. So, I thought this would be kind of an interesting topic because I know in a lot of ways, it seems that people are weird. People are crazy.
Mm-hmm.
To not steal some music lyric there, but people are crazy and people are definitely strange. And it seems that in some ways people don't belong.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is, if you look at people genetically, we've got many different, they're starting to come out, and they're finding out that early human beings, like, interbred with different species of different hominids. So, you got some people that are, everybody has the Homo sapien DNA in them, but then some groups will have Denisovans, some will have Neanderthal, and various other, subgroups of people. Which means that, and the other thing too is with a lot of religions, they try to cover it, but they'll sometimes they'll have similar stories, flying chariots in the sky,
right,
and they're using kind of the lexicon of the day, so and kind of using the words of the time. So I mean, a chariot, what is a chariot? It's a vehicle of some kind, but we don't know what. And you see kind of sometimes crazy carvings in places like in South America, for example. The one I remember seeing that there was a figure, and he looked almost like he was in a spaceship, but that could be interpreted in a few different ways. And I'm sure that everyone's talked about the possibility of the ancient aliens theory, but how much of this is real, how much of this is
right,
bogus, made up, BS. And it's kind of really hard to kind of pinpoint, because I know in a lot of ways people are also not set to the 24-hour circadian rhythm either, so that and lends some credence to that argument. I mean, what are your thoughts on something?
Well, you touched on they're using the lexicon of the day, and I think we have to keep in mind we're still doing that. We're still using the lexicon of what we understand, and a lot of modern humans think, well, we've got to this stage where we understand so much, but we can only name something, like you said, something like a spaceship. We don't. If we saw something in the sky that we can't explain, we're going to assume it's a spaceship. It may not be, So we're also struggling in modern times to put it. We're just putting it in our own context as well, which also makes it difficult. But the only thing we know for sure is what hard science tells us about genetics, and that's always altering, always changing. When I was a kid, they taught us that Neanderthals died out, and now we find out that they interbred with humans, and the genetics are still there. They taught us that, as we were discussing earlier, American Indians had come over from from Russia, basically over the Bering Sea. Well, now they're finding out that there's some European DNA in American Indians that who knows where that came from. They could have migrated here on boats thousands of years ago, or it could have been Europeans coming and breeding with the natives that we don't know about because that's before our history. So it's like I said, it's a lot of speculation and your imagination can run wild with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Because in a lot of ways, I mean, obviously we know the Vikings came over pre-Columbus, and there's been notions. I think they were seen as far as like the Mississippi River, as far as England into North America. So that definitely adds some element to why there might be some European DNA. As far as in the Native American population. And obviously some of it is also probably easily traced back to intermarrying when, European settlers came over, during the colonial period as well. I'm sure there's part of that as well. But yeah, even the ones that were not really exposed to that, they stayed, genetically homogenous within their society, that will still have markers of it too in their genetic material, which is interesting. It does kind of make you try to figure out what's going on. And there's also the notion of, we always talk about like lost civilizations. Everybody's heard the lost city of Atlantis, and it was supposed to have these great, amazing flying machines and various interesting technologies that were well advanced of anything that was, in the ancient world. And of course, there's the notion. People also know about, I'm sure, the fact they found batteries or primitive batteries in the pyramids. And there's a lot of these really odd ancient technologies that makes you kind of scratch your head. And all one, like I said, what one can do is speculate. But it does kind of bring up the notion that even in today's society, if God forbid, we lost the ability to manufacture the technologies we take for granted on a daily basis. Cell phones, most people could not build a cell phone from scratch without the aid of another machine. We're starting to get to the point when machines build the machines that build the machines. And without being able to build any of those machines ourselves, maybe just the first one, what happens when you don't have that machine anymore?
Yeah, a lot of things get lost through the mist of time. I heard somebody put it in perspective and said the founding of the U.S. is only, if just say guys live to 100 years old, that's only 3 people away. So we made all those advancements in basically 3 people away. Well, that could disappear just as quick. You have people concentrating on survival, their immediate needs. You see these science fiction movies, and it seems like science fiction where they go around these cities and they're deserted and they don't know what's going on. It's roaming bands, but that can happen very easily. Obviously the pressures of survival are going to be way more important than the pressures of trying to keep your technology. And once that becomes too difficult, if something were to happen, like say a solar flare or something like that, EMP knocks out all the power, it would definitely be a lot of lost knowledge. Which goes to what you were saying, is that could have definitely happened in the past.
Yeah, it seems that is a pretty good possibility. Because the ancient religions, they all talk about chariots of the sky bringing the gods down. And these gods with amazing powers, amazing knowledge. And then it seems that, like I said, not to get off into too much of the crazy land, but it does almost lend credence to the notion that there were ancient peoples, possibly from another world, possibly from this one, we don't know, that would have come in and kind of started civilization here. And who knows why they left. And if they did not bring the machines to build the machines that made the machines, then slowly over time, all of their knowledge disappears. Currently, right now, I believe Wikipedia, although not the most reliable source in the world, is technically the world's most complete encyclopedia on anything. Tomorrow the internet goes down permanently. Where's all that knowledge go?
Yeah, and in the past it was especially vulnerable because even with the advent of paper, which is still a relatively new technology, paper is very fragile. It burns, it's the burning of the Library at Alexandria. How much knowledge was lost there? Who's to say? We don't know. The same thing in the Crusades when they were burning the libraries in the Islamic world. Who knows how much knowledge was lost there? And we're more secure in our knowledge now than we ever were, but it's still, as you said, very fragile and could disappear within one generation.
Yeah, which is kind of frightening in a lot of ways. It's, I think oftentimes we take for granted, where we are. And just the advancements made, even in just the last 100 years. We went from barely the advent of the internal combustion engine to, spaceships and satellites and, being able to instantly communicate with anybody pretty much anywhere in the world. And all kinds of information at your fingertips. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And to think if one element, one little cog in the wheel gets misplaced or messes up, what happens then? That definitely...
Yeah, it would set us back. And I think coming into the future, we're going to start relying more on AI. I think, the last technological revolution was all about communications. Cell phones, the internet, social media, what have you. And we made giant leaps in that, and there's going to be something else. And I think the next thing is going to be AI. They're actively working on it. And that kind of leads into your point of what happens, say, if AI did run society. And things got much better because, the AI took care of the inequalities and, everything ran very smoothly. Self-driving cars, we could have double the amount of cars on the road because the traffic wouldn't be as bad because computers are running them. Well, then the solar flare happens or the EMP and all that's gone. people would definitely lose knowledge very quickly because they wouldn't have as much knowledge. They wouldn't have to have as much knowledge. Everything would be automatic for them. As you were saying, the machines run the machines. And then you're basically back to tribal society at that point.
It's kind of funny you said that people don't have to know that knowledge. And that's something I actually noticed in today's society with just the advancements we've had. There's a lot of things that people 20, 30, 50 years ago used to know how to do that people can't do. You talk to probably your grandmother, I'm sure she was able to make a shirt out of fabric.
Oh, my mother could. Yeah, my mother did when I was younger.
Okay, your mother could. Try finding a millennial, God forbid, a post-millennial that can sew a button on a shirt.
Right.
It pops off.
Right.
It's like, oh, the button popped off, throw it away.
Yeah.
Just something that mundane.
Yeah, that's a consequence of modern society. It's and we've always seen this with rich kids. That don't know how to do much. Well, as society becomes richer, we're all becoming rich kids. You don't have to know. Everything's becoming very specialized. Which also in the trades, everything's specialized. It makes you more money. There really isn't generalization anymore, which is a good thing and a bad thing because, like we said, that's where your knowledge disappears. People don't know how anything operates. They don't know how to fix something. They don't know how to, do a certain job. I've worked doing manual labor with people that didn't really know how to use a shovel.
Yeah, the shovel's really not that hard. I mean, you just kind of put it.
You would think, but they had so little experience in that world that it took about 2 or 3 minutes to kind of show them, hey, here's how you do it. So yeah, that's that, and it's somebody I won't say on camera, but we'll talk about that later.
Wow.
But yeah,
it's not the one guy.
No,
it's not the one guy with hair.
No. But it is somebody But it wasn't. Not that it took them an hour to learn how to work a shovel. It was like 2 minutes, but still, there was a little confusion. And then there was, oh, do you have some gloves? My hands are really hurting after about 10 minutes worth of work. And that just goes to show they never experienced that world. Just had never had to do physical labor at all.
Yeah, no, physical labor is fun or anything. So I've been there, done that too.
Oh, no, nobody likes it. Yeah.
But, it's kind of one of those things you knuckle down and do.
Mm-hmm.
It's, like I said, it's not fun, but it's,
But that just illustrates the loss of knowledge,
Yeah.
Because I know that seems like a very small thing to know, like you said, but that kind of proves the whole point. Is, what point do we get so technologically advanced? People look at a drill like, what is this thing? And it's only the guys that fix the stuff that know what it is. That definitely could be coming.
Yeah, that's definitely a very scary thought.
Yeah.
Like you said, God forbid, EMP or solar flare knocks everything out. If we had self-driving cars, you'd have to have somebody. It seems like the only people that would be able to do anything would be the tinkerer types that would sit in their garage and the hobbyists. That would be able to take the self-driving car, rip out the computers and electronics, and slap back, go to a junkyard, find a steering wheel from an ancient car. Ancient car at that point, and kind of retrofit it in with some nuts and bolts, and the thing's obviously going to fall apart because it's not meant to be that way.
Yeah.
But it would kind of work for a little bit. But even then, who's going to pump the gas? And who's going to refine the gas? No machines to refine the gas. There's no machines to refine the gas. There's no, there's no infrastructure in place. You got a bunch of stalled out dead vehicles all over the road. How do you get around? Horses, bicycles.
Yeah.
But even then, bicycles, they're going to, eventually the tires are going to go flat.
That's true.
You're going to have to put something around them.
Yeah.
The chains will break, the metal will corrode and rust away. And then, I guess you are back to horses or, camels or llamas or something.
Or whatever anybody can fashion on their own with wood or even metal you can work with. But, like you're saying, tires, it's more of an industrialized thing. Without industry, and returning back to our original topic, who knows what kind of industries there were? You were discussing, the makeshift batteries and technologies and the Antikythera mechanism, that they found at the bottom of the Mediterranean, which they're still unsure of even what that was.
I think they think it's kind of some sort of mechanical computer.
Yes, but they're unsure. It's kind of degraded enough where they're not really certain. That just goes to show you once again how quickly that knowledge left. You had this possible computer. You don't see it in any of the history books. You don't. When you learn about ancient Greeks, you don't learn about that. So what else was there?
Well, I know that actually with the ancient Greeks, I believe they also had a version of the steam engine. which is something that we wouldn't see again until the Industrial Revolution. And then they didn't really see it for its full potential. For them, it was more of a tinkering kind of novelty, fun toy item. Whereas for us, Western societies, they managed to take that, technology. And I don't even think they realized the ancient Greeks had it. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But they, reinvented it again. They rediscovered it, so to speak, and then put it into practice for industrial use.
Yeah. It's kind of like Da Vinci had the, little, they were just considered toys, but it was basically the first version of robots. Little clockwork animals, and I remember reading about a lion he made. It's just, clockwork, tinkering little toys, and back then it was considered just a toy. But that's, gears and springs, that became the Industrial Revolution and just continued to evolve.
Yeah.
So, once again, in the early dawn of humanity, because those people were just as smart as we are now. That I think is a common misconception a lot of people have, is they think they were just dumb. No, they didn't have a lot of knowledge, but they had the same IQ, they had the same physical brain that we have now. So they're able to discover and make all the same things we could. And who's to say maybe they did? And it just got lost in the mist of time.
Yeah, which I think is a very big possibility. Especially because there seems to be all these little indicators of advanced civilization pre-human beings. And like I said, all the religions of the world, all the myths, everything you find in mythology points to chariots in the sky. They point to advanced peoples with amazing power and knowledge. And yeah, we might get a little flack for this because very religious people will be like, well, the origins of people clearly is stated in various religious texts, be it the Bible, Torah, Quran, whatever. But they're all similar enough to where it makes you kind of question, is that? And who knows, maybe even the fact that human beings were kind of the way they were. It says that, God, we're going to just call the ancient people God for the time being. God created, people. Well, we were getting pretty close in the genetic world as well, where we're starting to get to the point where we can kind of, this gene does this one does that.
Yeah.
Let's poke it, prod it, and switch this around. It seems that we're almost starting to play God in that respect, because we're messing with genetic materials, we're doing all kinds of... some of this stuff has really positive, implications. I mean, if they can cure cancer by playing with some genetic material, and then they come up with a way to fix that, that'd be fantastic. Nobody else has a cancer anymore, or any other kind of debilitating disease. So, there's some positives to it, but in a lot of ways, people are becoming God.
Yeah, well, it's the old saying is if you encountered a technology that was incomprehensible to you, it would seem like it was magic, which would make that person a god. An ancient person would not understand. If you and I pulled up in just a standard car back then and stepped out, they'd be bewildered. It would be magic to them. They wouldn't understand it. They had no frame of reference. The people in South America, when they first saw the Spanish ships, they had no reference. It was almost like magic to them. They see this giant thing with giant cloth on it just coming in from the water. They didn't know what that was. They probably understood it was a boat of some sort because they had canoes and whatnot. They had no clue. And really, how many more years were the Spanish advanced than those people? Not many.
No.
In the scheme of things, those people still had metal. They were working with gold. So they weren't in the Stone Age. So even just somebody who would be maybe even 100 more years advanced than us would seem like a god to us.
Well, that brings up to the point of the early automobile. They called it, for the longest time, the horseless carriage, I believe. That kind of was before they came up with the name of automobile,
right.
It was, horseless carriage.
Yeah, they had to relate it to the technology that they had at the time. And that is what's so difficult, too, about trying to comprehend the way they thought, because we can't. Their world was completely different than ours. And that's why it's a lot of speculation, because you see what they wrote, you see what they said. What does it really mean? They can only speak from their experience, which was completely different than ours. Which I think, from an anthropological point of view, makes it extremely difficult to figure this stuff out through myths, legends. That's why really hard sciences like genetics is the only way we're going to get any concrete answers.
Yeah, but even that is going to be really hard to try to just uncover our origins, which is kind of the whole point of the question is, where do we come from?
Right.
who are we?
Yeah.
And that also makes it really hard for us to try to fit ourselves into a society where we don't even know who or what we are.
Right. And I think when we talk about our origins, I think we're really more so talking about organized society's origins. Because there's basically only two schools of thought of where man actually came from. It's either evolution or, for religious people, their creator. That's somewhat what we're talking about, because like you talk about ancient alien theories, genetic manipulation by other races or even other people on the planet, not necessarily aliens. But I think what we're really talking about is where did our cohesion as humans, when we gain that identity, not just where we came from as a biological being.
I think it's both. I think it's where did we come from as a biological being, but also when did Homo sapiens become people, I guess.
Right. That's kind of what I'm saying. Is,
yeah.
Obviously there was an evolution at least somewhere, somehow, or if you're a religious person, we're created, but when did that, like you said, step into the realm of human beings as we know them today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of the myths and legends and various, even some of the ancient religions, you can look at them and they'll pretty much tell the retelling of the same stories. If you go back to the ancient Mesopotamians, they had the same basic stories as what later become the tribes of Israel, which would later filter into Christianity, which would later filter into Judaism, or rather into Islam. So basically the same stories. I mean, really just retold with different names, slight different variation, but it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
In the Eastern religions, there's some differences, but a lot of it's very similar. So it's really, since all of them, a lot of these societies, which apparently didn't have contact with each other, so to speak, that's what we've been told at least. Weird. I mean, how do they all have the same story? Obviously, there has to be some overarching thing that is unifying them to all know the same story. And if the ancient people, the ancient advanced civilization, let's pretend they came from, we'll just say Mars, because again, people allegedly are not on a 24-hour cycle, and maybe there was several other groups of hominids, or in the world, and obviously these people come in, they have their advanced civilization, their civilization starts to crumble, they interbreed with the existing native population of the planet, and as their society crumbles, these other groups, this actually might be where all the religious stories come from. It's all the other hominids, which are now either they're basically bred into extinction, but they're intermixed with Homo sapiens. Maybe that's what it is, and it's very speculative. Obviously, I don't have any concrete proof or anything, but this is just the wheels in my head turning here. Maybe that's how that evolved, because these ancient peoples had this oral story, these oral traditions that they passed down. All these amazing people in the sky in their crazy city with all these, advanced technologies that they didn't have words for. And then they slowly intermixed, and that's where we are.
Yeah.
But I think it's really peculiar that we don't have a very definitive, this is who we are. And that kind of is really unsettling.
Now, back to your earlier point, I definitely think there's a lot of evidence to ancient societies being in a world trading structure and in communications with each other. Because like you said, there's so many things that are so similar, it's very hard to believe that they didn't know about the next civilization over. There have been reports, and I don't know if it's just apocryphal reports or this is actual facts, but there was Roman coins found in a cave in South America. Now there's speculation that, hey, this guy could have put them there for fame or whatnot, although if it were me, I'd just take the Roman coins and sell them, because that'd be worth a lot of money. So I don't know his motivation. If he did that, I don't know if it's true. There's also stories of Egyptian mummies having tobacco and other plants from South America in the burial chambers, as luxuries and what have you. So, those things lead me to believe that there was a trading structure. And if you think about it, it would be kept secret. Because if you were the guy with the boat, and you could go to another civilization and get luxury goods that are worth a lot of money, are you going to give that secret up so easily? Probably not. So it may have been a situation like that where it was only the traders that really knew about it. But either way, there had to be some communication between them.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up the the Roman coins in South America and the tobacco in Egypt. I know there's also a lot of Chinese ships that have been found off the western coast of the United States, that have been, scuttled or have sunk. So there's that, and various Chinese coins also found, like I said, on the west coast, which makes sense. We know that they explored a lot of the world during some of the imperial dynasties. So that does lend credence to more travel outside of what was also known. And then there's also the notion of pyramid-type structures in various countries throughout the world. You obviously have them in Egypt, but you have them in South America. You have them in various places all throughout the world. So that does also show that something that was done in one place is done elsewhere as well. So definitely is.
Yeah, and I mean that like I said, that could be communication, or it could just be that human beings actually think alike because their physical brain structure is very, very similar. So and I've heard a lot of theories on that. Once again, speculation, who will know? But in my opinion, there's definitely some communications between those different peoples of the world back then.
So if you guys are enjoying the content here on the Donut Hole, please hit that subscribe button, and also kind of check us over on Patreon. We'd love your support over there.
We still need money.
So I think we're going to end this segment here, and we'll see you guys on the flip side. And if there's any content that you'd like to see in the future, please reach out to us. We'd love to know what your thoughts are on the program, what you'd like to see, what you don't like, and try to create a show that not only we enjoy, but you guys enjoy as well.
And the more money you give us, the more we will like you.
We need a donut this one. We got a raspberry one.
I will take that, but not right now.
9/11. I think it's conspiracy, or I think.
We gotta have Will to hear that one, dude. If he
put that one out, he'll be like, I should have been there.
If he was here right now, because I do disagree with him on it. Because like I tell him, I'm like, it's not that I'm saying it's not a conspiracy.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that there's no evidence of it being a conspiracy. Now, yes, you have the engineers that say it, but that, to me, once again, motive. And that's one thing we would get into it about. It's like, dude, there's no motive. And he's like, yeah, but you gotta have the American people rah, rah, rah. And I'm like, no, you don't. Especially in modern America. I mean, America just does what it wants.
Yeah. I mean, how many people were rah, rah, rah in support of Syria?
Yeah. No, it doesn't really wait for the consent of the governed anymore.
No, it really doesn't. And not only that, but it was a really bad idea. Because the truth of the matter is, all said and done, the first time the United States tried to say, Assad gassed his own people, come to find out that was not really the case.
Yeah.
And it's the same with the subsequent ones. He had basically all but wiped ISIS out in the area, and along with the opposition. And then he's going to use chemical weapons. He's going to use gas at that point when he's basically won the war. I don't think so. And then we're going to shoot, missiles at him. That makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, I don't think it makes any sense either. And I've discussed this, the older I get, the more or the less conspiracy driven I am, because I gain a little more common sense, and I'm like, but on that one, I mean, it's I like you said, it makes no sense to me at all. Yeah. And plus, the white hats were caught or the white helmets, whatever they call them, were caught in so many lies and setting up photos that garnered sympathy for their side, and so I don't really believe anything what they say either.
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking that while Assad might not be very pro-United States, obviously, especially right now, then he's definitely more sympathetic to Russia and what have you. I'm not seeing it being this. Assad is this. He might be the greatest guy. He might be kind of like Saddam. Kind of a ruthless tyrant, but at the same time, he's not a ruthless tyrant who, like in Saddam's case, actually did go out and gas his own people.
Yeah.
That was
Kurds.
Yeah, the Kurds. Yeah, that was more of an ethnic cleansing, which was still terrible. But with Assad, I don't see it as that necessarily being the case. A lot of times in the Middle East, you get these strong dictators, and they at least keep law and order. so to speak, and help society have cohesion. Because it seems like in a lot of these places, it's left to just an open democracy. Democracy is actually not a very effective form of government.
No,
they end up getting a bunch of weird, goofy, violent extremists, which is really terrible.
Well, you look what happened in Egypt with we're going to elect the Muslim Brotherhood. Oh wait, we're going to riot because we don't want the Muslim Brotherhood. I mean, that's kind of how it goes in the Middle East.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
So I think actually Assad in power is a good thing. I don't think he's actually gassing his own people. I think that was false propaganda and narrative sold to the American people to justify shooting some missiles.
And it's really just a big proxy war between us and Russia. I still don't get the whole Russia thing right now, which is funny. They tore Mitt Romney apart when he's like, our biggest geopolitical foe is Russia. They made fun of him. They said the 1980s wants your politics back, man. And now all you hear is Russia, Russia, Russia. The same people that tore Mitt Romney apart for saying it. Yeah. And I don't necessarily understand why, because as far as world influence, they only have an economy the size of Italy's. And I just don't get where the Russia paranoia comes in from certain segments of the elite. I don't get it. Now, granted, they should have never been allowed to do what they did in Crimea, but that was also, to a certain extent, an internal thing as well with the Russian loyalists that were living in Crimea.
Yeah, I disagree with you on that, because the way Crimea works is Crimea was actually part of Russia initially, before the Soviet Union. Crimea was Russian. Strictly Russian. It was part of Russia. It was part of the Russian Empire. It was Russian. Nobody can argue that. And it was under Joseph Stalin, once the Soviet Union was obviously in place already, and all the various Soviet states that made up the Soviet Union, including the Ukraine. At that point, it was when Stalin said, okay, we're going to cede this territory to Ukraine, and it was some sort of internal dealings within a larger nation state.
Right.
It's like, if we're all in the United States, and all of a sudden we're like, we're going to give Memphis to Mississippi because we really don't want it.
Sure. Yeah.
Just use that as an example. It's a city. It's in Tennessee.
Right.
Now we're based here in Nashville. But it's like if we secede, or we let gave Memphis to Mississippi, then all of a sudden the United States falls apart, and all the people and it doesn't really matter because we're all Americans, right?
Yeah.
But if all the people in Memphis and we want to be part of Tennessee because we're ethnically Tennesseans, we say howdy y'all and all that. They would have a legitimate claim to that.
Yeah.
Especially if everybody that had been living there identified as being Tennesseans, and the United States dissolves, every individual state's its own country. And that's basically what happened with Crimea. And they held a referendum, they voted, they said, we want to be part of Russia. Ukraine said, go, get bed. And they said, hey, Russia, help us out. And Russia did.
Now, am I wrong in thinking it was a semi-autonomous region within the Ukraine?
It was kind of an ethnic enclave, but I don't think it was an autonomous region. I could be wrong.
I was unsure about that. I just thought that it might have been. But, and like I said, that's probably all of what you said is why the world allowed it to happen. But, you hear all these, the fear-mongering of, Putin's trying to put back together the Soviet states, and I'm like, yeah, well, if he is, it would take him 300 years to do it, because he's not working very fast, is he? I just don't get the whole Russia paranoia thing.
Well, I think some of it, and Russia's kind of doing a little saber rattling, and I understand why. Because for the longest time, NATO was an adversary. And NATO is slowly encroaching closer and closer and closer on him. He's viewing that as a threat. If you have somebody that used to be your nation's, nemesis, slowly moving closer and closer and still pointing missiles at you.
Yeah, there's no more Warsaw Pact.
Yeah, exactly. There's no buffer states, right? So before Poland would be a buffer state, but now Poland's part of NATO. So now you can just put missiles in Poland.
Yeah, half of Warsaw Pact is being absorbed by NATO.
And the EU.
Yeah.
So that's kind of making him, I understand why he's a little upset about it. At the same time, I think it should, you don't really need to put missiles in Poland. We can put them in Germany, and it's just as good. I mean, it's basically close
Oh,
enough.
with the technology we have,
Why do we need to put them in Poland? Really, we're just being
really,
ostentatious.
to get conspiratorial with it, it's encroaching globalism is what it is. It's basically the EU and NATO, not that it's their motivations, but being used as a tool. You see it all over. Everything with the UN is encroaching globalism. They want a homogenous world society. And people say it's conspiracy, but you look at like a Agenda 20, what are they calling it now? They changed the name.
Or something like
Yeah,
that.
they've changed the name. But people say, "Oh, you're paranoid about that. It's a non-binding. It's not. There's no law involved. It's just an idea." But it's an idea that a lot of countries signed on to, and you read that, and that's basically what they say they want. So you got a guy like Vladimir Putin who may believe that's what they're trying to do is make a homogenous global society, and he wants no part of it.
Well, that's actually something they are doing. I mean, there's no hiding behind it now. I mean, whether you say there's no binding power to it this way, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Because you're noting a lot of various things that are happening that lend credence to that. For example, there's an information, an intelligence merger between a lot of different countries. I believe the United States is on with it, Canada's on with it, the UK, New Zealand, and Australia have all signed on to this mutual intelligence sharing network. So where any of those spy agencies will spy, even if it's not legal for the NSA to spy on us, which it's not, but they do it anyway, they could just have the British do it for us. And they'll share the information. So you've already got networks like that where a bunch of countries they basically pooled their intelligence services together. You've got just the way a lot of the trade blocks are set up. It's very similar with that as well, where there's so much cohesion and cooperation. When it comes to international banking, there's the same thing. We could spend probably 3 days talking about international banking with the IMF, with the Federal Reserve Bank, with the International Monetary Fund, with everything that's involved in that, and even some high-profile people that are A, fairly wealthy, B, very innovative. Even they're saying, yeah, this is going to happen or is happening. Elon Musk, for example, is telling you, this is pretty much coming down the line. That's what it is. And I think is unavoidable.
It is, but I don't think it should be forced. I think it should come about organically through bringing up lower socioeconomic countries on par with everybody else. And then just naturally through trade and through, like you said before, through example, you all start cooperating on a level. It feels a little bit forced with the over-regulation, the intelligence agencies getting involved. It feels very forced. And you're seeing a huge blowback about it in Europe. I mean, well, in America too, Donald Trump, But in Europe, you're seeing these Eastern European countries that are openly anti-EU, even though they're in the EU. Anti-globalist, nationalism's rising. And you look at the riots in France right now, which that's a whole other subject because it's hilarious how these folks are rioting because the fuel prices went up. But at the same time, their list of demands are higher wages. They want to impose a maximum wage of you can only make, I think it's about $300,000 a year in France. And it's like, you guys are combating, socialist tax and spend policies with more tax and spend policies. That's a recipe for disaster. You're protesting taxes by saying we need more government benefits, which where are you going to get that from? From more taxes. It's like you just got bit with the more taxes to support the social welfare, but yet you're demanding more social welfare. It's not a good place to be.
So my question is, I know earlier you touched on this, and I think I'm going to ask this question. I think I already know the answer. Now, you said bring up those of lower socioeconomic status, and you said a lot of this is happening by force. You're not proposing redistribution of wealth, are you?
Oh, no, not at all. No.
Okay.
I'm saying just increased free trade, it's like the cycle that we talked about in Southeast Asia, of Japan starts exporting cheap goods. They were a poor country after World War II. Then they started exporting a little better goods. Well, the next country down the line, they started taking up the cheap goods. And just, continuing that, I mean, like what happened with China.
Oh, so like an export-led growth model economy.
Yes, but because of free trade, which that's one thing I definitely disagree with Donald Trump on. I don't think tariffs are good for anybody.
No.
I disagree with this whole notion of we have a trade surplus. Well, of course we have a trade surplus. We're the largest economy in the world. We're going to be able, as citizens, to buy more of their goods than they are able to buy of ours. It's as simple as that.
Well, there is that, but there is also the notion of the fact that Chinese tack on really high luxury taxes on a lot of things. Because believe it or not, there is a segment of the Chinese population that wants American goods.
Yes.
They want, the Sealy mattress. They want like higher end furniture. Mm-hmm. They want some of the nicer, finer things that are made here and really high quality still. The few things that are still made here as far as manufacturing industry is concerned, because some companies haven't left and they haven't jumped ship yet. Then obviously the prices are higher. But the Chinese in turn tax those items as luxury goods, and that does kind of kick us in the pants a bit.
But at the same time, why are you going to punish the American people with tariffs that make their goods more expensive, which makes goods more expensive in general?
Yeah, I know. I totally don't think. I agree. I don't think that tariffs are a good thing. I think it's a tax on the American people. Mm-hmm. It's a tax on the consumer.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It doesn't punish the source country, because even so, you add the tariff on, it's still going to be cheaper to buy the Chinese stuff than it is going to be the U.S. domestic stuff, if there is U.S. domestic stuff even produced of that type anymore.
Yeah.
I know right now that for example, large-scale power transformers that you see for electrical, the big electrical lines, we don't make those anymore. We have to buy those from China.
Yeah.
We don't have them. GE does not make them here.
Right.
Don't exist.
Right.
Those have to be imported.
Right.
Period. One of those breaks just is what it is.
Yeah. But that is where the world will come together. Is money rules all, follow the money, and prosperity is good for everybody. Is people say, well, China, they are messing with us on the technology front, cyber attacks and whatnot. But in reality, does China ever want to really have a conflict with the U.S.? No, there's way too much money and there's way too much interconnectedness involved there. That's why we have this, I've been calling it the Pax Americana. Mm-hmm. We have this American peace that, I know a lot of people say, well, Afghanistan, Iraq, that's not what I'm talking about. There's been no large-scale wars since World War II. Mm-hmm. No, just huge wars. And it's because of interconnected economic dependence, people don't want to go to war with each other. It's bad business. And that's a good thing. And that's why I propose more free trade.
Yeah, and you're right. That's actually kind of funny, because I'm actually in the process of very slow process of writing a kind of dystopian science fiction book. And in the book, it actually talks about how wars are really not happening. It's really just a small proxy wars, little tiny, almost like militarized police engagements, and that's it. And it's because the world has been so interconnected. So actually, it'll be fun when that finally comes out.
And I think that's the right idea. I think that's kind of where the world's going, which is a great thing. It's eliminating a lot of violence and fosters cooperation. Like I said, you can't force this stuff, but when people are dependent on each other economically, they're less likely to be angry with each other. And you've seen it in America. Gosh, 20 years ago, if you lived in a small town in America, you're not going to your local grocery store and finding goods from England. I went to Publix the other day in Goodlettsville, Tennessee, and there's a English food section. There's so much more available. I went into Publix. There's all kinds of foods from different countries that you would have never seen 20 years ago, and that's all just because of free trade and opening up the economies. It's a great thing, and that's where we'll move forward. Is people are greedy and at least use that to humans' advantage, to make things better.
Yeah. So basically using the positives of capitalism to try to lift some of these places that are, impoverished around the world, and try to, get them to follow maybe like an export-led growth model economy or something like that, and pull themselves up.
I guess it's kind of an Heinlein kind of viewpoint a little bit. Because it definitely worked for Asia. And I believe, India is slowly coming up themselves. We pretty much, as far as the worst economies, it's pretty much, Africa now that needs a lot of help, which I have a controversial theory about. We give way too much aid to Africa. They need to figure it out for themselves. because there have been some, pockets of success in Africa. But with political unrest, it tends to kind of go.
Which is a shame because Africa actually, as far as the continent goes, has a lot of natural resources at their disposal, even more so than many other places.
Oh, it's gigantic. When you actually see the comparisons they do where they put, the U.S. map overlaid on Africa, I mean, the place is huge. And it's the Chinese are there a lot because they know there's a lot of room for economic development there. I think in the next 40 years, people are going to get rich there because it's got nowhere to go but up, and it's trending that way with the Chinese businessmen, and they're coming in. And now, some of it's a little fishy with the land expropriation things, and then you come to find out there's a Chinese mine on that's going in on that land afterwards. They don't seem to mind using the corruption to gain their foothold. But overall, that Chinese mine there, is that going to help those people? Yeah, it's going to be jobs for them and things like that. So, but that's a whole other egg to crack.
Yeah, but yeah, because I also know that there's a lot of rare earth minerals and what have you in Africa as well. And obviously you've got diamonds, which is kind of an inflated, goofy market to begin with. But
what diamonds did to Africa is disgusting. If I were African people, I would hate the diamond.
Yeah.
Not rare at all.
No, it's not. They've got warehouse upon warehouse upon warehouse of these things.
It's artificially jack the price. So.
Yeah. But there's still a commodity that's sold in the market.
Yeah. It's
they have the raw diamonds there, and frankly, I think they should be charging an arm and a leg and more for it because that's kind of what it costs to get it.
Yeah.
But again, they have the rare earth minerals. They have so many natural resources that they're available or at their disposal. It's really a shame that a lot of it's the socio-political and economic factors in place with a lot of the governments there that are kind of keeping everybody down.
Yeah.
So hopefully in the future.
Because if there's more stability there, tourism just alone. Because as far as a continent that has varied, topography and geography and just beautiful place to go see.
Wildlife.
Who wouldn't love to go to Africa just to go to a national park, I think a lot of people don't because of the politics and because of the instabilities, and sometimes it's dangerous. You never know really what's going to happen. And it's frankly an expensive place to reach. Plane tickets there are pretty expensive. And common man can't quite do it yet, but if you were to have a stable place that kind of got that Disneyland kind of status, or Disneyland's probably a bad analogy, it's more like Yellowstone kind of status in the world, I think they could make a ton of money.
Yeah, that would be definitely good. Well, guys, I hope you've enjoyed our program today. If you did, please hit that subscribe button and consider supporting us on Patreon. Also, if you want to be an advertiser on our show, reach out to us at the email in the description. We'll be more than happy to advertise you here on the Donut Hole. And we're all the way from our studio here in Nashville, Tennessee. Have a good night.
Have a good night.